You wake again into the same world because surviving one night never meant safety the next day. The danger does not reset, it accumulates. Every breath you take indoors carries something with it. Smoke clings low to the ground, especially in rooms without proper chimneys. It coats the throat, settles in the lungs, and never fully leaves. People cough not because they are sick, but because the air itself irritates them day after day. Over time, breathing becomes shallow. Chest infections linger. What begins as discomfort slowly reshapes the body's limits. Work becomes harder, sleep becomes restless, weakness follows, and weakness invites everything else. Even silence hides threats. Damp walls grow soft with mold you cannot always see. It creeps behind tapestries, under rushes scattered on the floor, inside storage spaces meant to protect food. The smell becomes familiar enough to ignore. Exposure is constant. The body adjusts, but never fully recovers. Headaches, nausea, confusion. Symptoms rarely connected to the place itself because nowhere else is different. Hygiene exists, but it is constrained by effort and resources. Water must be carried. Heating it costs fuel. Washing happens less often than needed, not from neglect, but from calculation. Which is more important today? Warmth, food, or cleanliness? The answer changes with the weather, the season, the body's condition. Dirt accumulates slowly, invisibly becoming part of daily life. Skin breaks down, rashes appear, open sores linger. Infection finds its way in without resistance. Hands are always busy. They knead dough, lift wood, tend animals, handle waste, touch wounds. They move from one task to another without barriers. Even when people know something is unclean, they have little choice. Soap is limited, cloth is reused, water is cold. The concept of separation between clean and contaminated exists only in intention, not in practice. Time itself becomes a danger. Illness does not pause work. Pain does not excuse rest. Missing a day means losing food, favor, or shelter. People continue despite fever, despite weakness, despite wounds that should not be stressed. The body spends energy it does not have. Recovery is delayed until it becomes impossible. Collapse often comes suddenly, but it is built slowly. Sound carries risk too. Bells, carts, animals, shouting. Noise is constant. Sleep fractures into short stretches. Exhaustion becomes normal. With it comes lowered awareness, slower reactions, mistakes. A misstep near a fire, a fall on a wet floor, a dropped tool. Accidents are not rare events. They are the background rhythm of labor. Night does not bring safety. Darkness conceals obstacles. Candles flicker and fail. Oil lamps spill. Rodents emerge. Cold deepens. Fear sharpens. People wake unsure whether the pain they feel is temporary or the beginning of something worse. There is no clear threshold where concern becomes alarm. By the time danger is undeniable, options are few. The body learns to endure, but endurance is not protection. It masks warning signs. People grow used to discomfort that would later kill them. Hunger dulls, thirst becomes background noise, pain becomes familiar. This familiarity is itself lethal because it delays response until response no longer matters. Social closeness spreads danger as easily as comfort. Shared beds mean shared warmth and shared parasites. Shared meals mean shared contamination. Caring for the sick exposes the healthy. Isolation is rare and often worse. Communities survive together or fall together. When illness enters a household, it rarely stays with one person. Even recovery carries risk. Weak bodies are more likely to fall, to misjudge distance, to slip. Muscles waste quickly when food is scarce. A healed wound leaves stiffness. Stiffness alters movement. Altered movement leads to new injury. the chain never fully breaks. Luck plays a role no one can measure. Two people drink from the same source. One falls ill, the other does not. One woman survives childbirth repeatedly, another dies the first time. One cut heals, another festers. Explanations are guessed after the fact, never known in advance. Faith fills the gap where certainty cannot exist. People adapt by narrowing their world. They walk familiar paths, eat familiar food, trust routines even when those routines are dangerous because unpredictability is worse. Change carries its own risks. Trying something new, another water source, another shelter, another route, might be fatal. Safety becomes relative, not absolute. What kills is rarely dramatic. It is cumulative exposure, repeated strain, systems under constant pressure with no margin for error. The body is resilient, but not endlessly so. It fails quietly, often without witnesses, often without clear cause. And still, life continues, not because it is safe, but because stopping is not an option. Survival is not a triumph. It is a temporary state maintained by balance, habit, and chance. You can keep going. You can wake, eat, work, sleep, and wake again, but none of it is guaranteed. Every ordinary act carries weight. Every day is a negotiation with forces that do not care whether you notice them or not. Morning does not reset the body. It reveals what the night has taken. Stiff joints protest before thought returns. Muscles ache not from effort alone, but from cold that never fully released them. The first steps of the day are careful, not from caution, but because balance is uncertain until warmth slowly returns. Even standing up carries risk when weakness has crept in unnoticed. Hunger sharpens decision-making in dangerous ways. When food is scarce, people eat what they have, not what is safe. Leftovers are scraped clean, sour smells are ignored, mold is brushed aside. The body needs energy immediately, and the future consequences feel distant compared to the present emptiness in the stomach. Poisoning is rarely suspected until it is too late to undo. Digestion itself becomes a point of failure. Repeated illness damages the gut. Nutrients pass through without being absorbed. People eat and remain weak, assuming they need more food when what they lack is recovery. Weight drops, strength fades, tasks take longer, exposure increases. Even rest is unreliable. Daylight demands work. Night brings cold, noise, and interruption. True sleep, deep, uninterrupted, is rare. Without it, the mind dulls, judgment weakens, reaction time slows. A tired person is more likely to burn themselves, trip, forget to extinguish a flame, mishandle a blade. Fatigue is invisible, but it kills as surely as infection. Pain becomes a constant companion, but it is not evenly distributed. Some endure chronic toothaches that pulse through the skull. Others live with joints that swell and lock. Pain draws attention inward, narrowing awareness of surroundings. People miss warnings because their senses are already overwhelmed. Clothing offers limited protection. Wool insulates when dry, but when soaked, it becomes heavy and draining. Shoes wear thin. Feet crack. Fungal infections spread between toes, opening new pathways for bacteria. A limp changes posture. Posture strains the back. Strain leads to injury. The body compensates until it cannot. Animals are both support and danger. Livestock bring warmth and food, but also waste and parasites. Living close to animals is practical, sometimes necessary, but it blurs boundaries. Fleas jump hosts easily. Cuts exposed to animal waste infect quickly. Kicks, bites, and trampling injuries are common and rarely clean. Waste disposal is inconsistent. Refuse piles grow near homes. Latrines overflow. Rain spreads contamination into paths and water sources. The smell becomes familiar enough to ignore, but the danger does not fade with familiarity. Flies move freely between waste and food. They require no invitation. Children are especially vulnerable, not because they are careless, but because their bodies are still learning how to survive. Fevers burn hotter, dehydration arrives faster, small injuries escalate quickly. Many do not live long enough to adapt. Those who do carry scars that shape the rest of their lives. Aging brings its own risks. Bones thin, vision dims, balance worsens. Older people fall more often and healing slows. A broken bone can mean the end of independence. Dependence strains households already stretched thin. Neglect is not intentional, but it happens when survival demands difficult choices. Weather shifts turn routine into crisis. Rain floods floors and cellars. Dampness returns stronger than before. Frost hardens paths into hazards. Heat spoils food faster. Each season changes which dangers rise to the surface, but none ever disappear. Medical knowledge exists, but it is limited by observation and tradition. Treatments may soothe or harm. Bleeding weakens bodies already struggling. Herbal remedies vary in strength and purity. Dosage is guesswork. Relief is uncertain. Trust is placed in experience, prayer, and hope. The mind carries its own burden. Fear is constant but normalized. People learn not to panic because panic exhausts energy needed for survival. Instead, anxiety settles deep, shaping behavior quietly. Decisions are conservative. Risks are accepted only when necessary. Even so, danger finds ways in. Nothing is isolated. Cold worsens infection. Hunger delays healing. Infection increases exhaustion. Exhaustion leads to mistakes. Mistakes cause injury. Injury invites infection again. The cycle tightens with every missed opportunity to recover. Survival, when it happens, is not clean or complete. It leaves marks. It shortens breath. It limits movement. It reshapes what a body can tolerate. People live, but within shrinking margins. And still, the day moves forward. Work resumes. Meals are prepared. Water is drawn. Fires are lit. Life continues not because it is safe, but because stopping is more dangerous than continuing. Say the word when you want the final part. By the end, what becomes clear is not that the Middle Ages were filled with constant catastrophe, but that danger was woven so tightly into ordinary life that it rarely announced itself. People did not wake expecting to die. They woke expecting to endure, to manage pain that lingered, to work around weakness, to ignore symptoms until they became impossible to ignore. The world trained them to accept discomfort as normal because resisting it consumed energy they could not afford to lose. Survival depended on learning where pain could be tolerated and where it could not, often without knowing the difference until afterwards. What killed was rarely a single mistake, it was accumulation. A body weakened by cold met contaminated water. A small cut met exhaustion. Hunger met spoiled food. Smoke met lungs already strained. Each factor alone might be survivable. Together they narrowed the margin until there was none left. There was no safe baseline. Health was not a stable condition, but a temporary alignment of circumstances. When that alignment broke, recovery was uncertain. People lived close to the edge without realizing how close they were because there was no alternative way to live. Luck mattered more than strength. Two people could live the same life, eat the same food, drink the same water, sleep in the same room, and only one would fall ill. Explanations came afterwards, shaped by belief and experience, but the outcome itself felt arbitrary. Survival was not proof of resilience. Death was not proof of failure. Communities adapted by normalizing loss. Death was present enough to be familiar, but never familiar enough to be painless. People mourned, adjusted, and continued because stopping meant exposing themselves to new dangers. Grief and practicality existed side by side, neither fully displacing the other. What we ignore today is not just how dangerous ordinary life once was, but how invisible that danger felt to those living inside it. They did not see their world as uniquely deadly. It was simply the world. Its risks were accepted because there was no comparison, no safer version to imagine. Survival depended on routine holding together one more day, on the weather staying mild, on food not turning, on wounds staying clean, on the body continuing to compensate for damage already done. When those fragile conditions aligned, life went on. When they did not, it ended quietly, often without spectacle. The Middle Ages were not defined by constant disaster, but by constant vulnerability. Life persisted not because it was protected, but because people adapted to danger so thoroughly that it became invisible, until it wasn't. And that is what makes it unsettling. Not the violence we remember, but the ordinary acts that carried risk with every step, every meal, every breath, in a world where survival was never guaranteed, only temporarily achieved. If you found this story meaningful, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps support the channel and allows this documentary to reach a wider audience.